presentation. I'm Sarah and this is Kiki, who's facilitating with me today. Our presentation is about the power of mentoring. Both of us work at Friends for Youth, which is a youth organization, a mentoring organization that's based in Redwood City. Friends for Youth has been serving the Bay Area for over 40 years. And so we've made many mentoring matches between youth and caring adults. Friends for Youth focuses on serving marginalized families and under-resourced families. So youth who just need some extra support. Maybe parents are working long hours, and a mentor can really help just provide that support for them at school or at home. We have, let's see, 3 different mentoring components. We have one-to-one mentoring, which is just one adult matched with one youth, and the youth are ages 8 to 17. They hang out once a week and go do fun things together. They're matched based on their personalities, their interests, geographically where they live, just so it's convenient when they go pick up the youth from home. That program, one of the really special things about it is that because they're picking up the youth from home, it opens up access to a lot of youth who maybe their parents are still working or they don't have, the transportation. It's a free program. And so a lot of times people who join our program haven't been able to be in any other after-school programs before. We also have group mentoring, which is 2 mentors to about 5 youth. And that creates a really special community environment in that small group. We have a curriculum that we use for that, and we do that at schools, and we also do that at community centers. And then lastly, we have a health and wellness initiative called Whole Health for Youth, or our Y initiative, where we make sure to connect our mentorships to more resources than just our programs. So there's a lot of other enrichment, leadership opportunities, and mental health services that they can access through us. Feel free to use the chat and ask questions. We'll answer them probably towards the end. We also have a quick poll that I'll do right now before we get started. We would just like to know a little bit about our demographics if we have youth or adults here. And also if you've been a mentor or are a mentor, and also if you've been a mentee or are a mentee. Hopefully you can check more than one box, because I know a lot of us might be both. And I'll let that go as Kiki and I introduce ourselves. So I'm Sarah Norman. I'm the Community Partnerships Director at Friends for Youth, and I've been with Friends for Youth for about 5 years. I started working in youth development when I was in Los Angeles with a program for young adults called Youth Build, which is a really amazing program, and that kind of hooked me into working with young people, learning from them, and building programs with them. And so I think my first mentorship that I was able to be a part of was at Youth Build, and there is a young person who was going through a really hard time. All of the youth in that program were pushed out of school, rather than saying drop out, they didn't receive the support they needed, so they hadn't finished high school. They were starting to figure out their gender orientation, whether they were trans, non-binary, and came from a very conservative home. And so throughout that whole year or 2 that I was there, I was probably the only support that they had during that time. And so I just learned about how special mentorships were during that time and how important they are. And also how it is really a mutual relationship, because I got a lot out of it also. And Yeah, so I'll pass that over to Kiki to tell you a little bit about herself.
Sure. Hi, everyone. So happy to see you all here today. I'm so excited to, talk to you guys about mentoring and the power of mentoring. I'm a senior program coordinator and volunteer coordinator at Friends for Youth. I've been at Friends for Youth for a little bit over a year, and I love it there. I love working with the youth. I also love meeting the volunteers, helping them through the application process, and helping train them to become amazing quality mentors. So I'm super excited to be here today. And my pronouns are she, her, hers. And poll's all done. So I wanted to maybe share the results with you all, Sarah, if that's okay with you.
Oh, yeah.
So it seems like we have people who have experience being mentors, which is fantastic. So maybe, you'll learn some things or also share your experiences in the chat box. If we share something and you have an experience or a story or, a comment about that, we would love to hear that from you. We also have people, who maybe are new to mentoring, want to learn about it. So perfect place to be. So super happy. Thank you guys so much for coming.
Great.
Okay, and I will move on in the presentation.
Okay.
So like Sarah said, from Friends for Youth, we've been around for over 40 years, especially with our one-to-one program, starting with that. And this quote really helps explain, the impact of mentoring and why it's so important, because nothing has more impact in the life of a child than positive relationships. And if we go back in time and think about, our youth and maybe growing up, we definitely probably had some role models who were really positive relationships that helped to guide us. It could be a teacher, could have been a coach, maybe at work. It was a mentor that really helped guide you and gave you confidence to achieve your best. And so we love this quote to kind of help illustrate the importance of mentoring and why it's important for youth to have a mentor. And so we're also going to watch a video, one of my favorite videos, kind of talking about the impact of mentoring and why it's important for mentors to stand up and get involved with their community. Amazing. I love that video. And one of my favorite things about that video is the data that it shares with us. 90% of mentees who have mentored return to be mentors, which is so true. We see a lot of mentees in our program come back to be mentors, which is the most amazing and most beautiful thing to see. So it's a ripple effect. You spend the time here and there, spending time with a young person to help guide them and support them, and they'll give it back to the community, which is one of my favorite parts about mentoring, and what inspired me to be a Friends for Youth and mentor as well. So one thing I wanted to talk about as well with everyone was kind of the culture of mentoring. We, see mentoring in, careers, we see mentoring in schools, but working with youth, this type of mentoring relationship it's really important to talk about what a mentor is and what a mentor is not. And when you go into a mentoring opportunity or a program, what kind of role should you have, and what should your values be when you go into a mentorship? So let's talk about some of the things that make a really great and effective mentor and what mentors are. A mentor should be a trusted friend, and it's a mirror to who the youth can become. They see that youth's potential and they say, hey, I believe in you. You can do it. Don't give up. Just give me that support and that encouragement. Another thing about mentorship that's really important is this element of a lasting relationship. It's not a one-time meeting. It's a consistent meeting, because over that time you build that rapport, you build that relationship with the mentee, and they trust you, they respect you over that time. And so we have mentorships that have been matched for over 20 years or so, and even longer, probably. We've been around for over 40 years or so. But to see those lasting relationships continue for years, that's the goal. And that's what we want to see with our mentorships. And mentors are a caring guide. Growing up, as we all know, it's hard, it's confusing. There's a lot of different elements to being a young person, and it's changing. Youth culture has changed a lot since, 10 years ago or so. And so working with a young person, you're able to learn about youth culture and the challenges that they're experiencing. So you're able to learn that, but you're also able to help give guidance because you've lived it. The challenges. And so you're able to kind of give your wisdom and share that. It's very unique. You're not really able to do that with anyone else, maybe your children, but that's a really beautiful part about the mentorship, is kind of that exchange. Let's look at some of the things that a mentor should not be. When you go into a mentorship opportunity, what are things you want to avoid? The biggest thing I would say you want to avoid is coming in with a mindset that you're a savior or that you're a fixer, right? A youth does not have to be saved. They do not have to be fixed. You need to meet your mentee where they're at, right? You need to give them that respect, and don't come into the opportunity thinking that you know all the answers. It's totally okay. And it's awesome to not know all the answers, because when you get into that experience, you're the one learning a lot as well, right? You're learning from your mentee, and they're learning from you. Like I said, and it's an exchange, which we'll also talk about later. But mentorships, it's not this, kind of level difference, right? It's this equality and it's this respect. And so if you go into an opportunity with the mindset that you're all knowing, you know all the answers, you should do this, this, and this, and not really listening to your mentee, that can be a really, negative environment to kind of have that mentorship be in. A mentor is also very different from a parent and a tutor. A tutor is very academic focused, helping with homework, and a mentor can most definitely help with homework, but we don't want that to be the only thing that the relationship is based on. A lot of our youth feel very anxious about school, especially in the Bay Area where we are. It's very competitive. Many youth that are in our program are at odds with their teachers. They don't trust their teachers, and there's some tension there that can be really unhealthy for youth. And so we want mentors to be a break from that school environment and say, hey, let's do some fun stuff. Let's talk about what you're experiencing outside of that school environment. So that's why they're different from a tutor, and they're different from a parent because, if they're not a parent, they're not parenting the youth. They're not this authority figure. They're just there to really support and unconditionally care about their mentee. So yeah, let's go into some of the outcomes that we see in mentoring, some of the benefits that both the mentor and the mentee gain from mentoring. One of the big ones is improved communication. As a mentor, you really learn amazing listening skills, and you also learn when you need to give advice and when you shouldn't, right? you're listening to comprehend rather than listening to respond. Sometimes we come from this place where we really want to fix people's problems because we don't want to see them in pain or don't want to see them go through an obstacle. But we need to learn from those experiences. And so you also have those personal skills improved as well through your mentorship. And there's also increased engagement and confidence for both the mentor and the mentee. Maybe the mentee feels more confident to, engage with people in the class, advocate for themselves in school. So there's a increased academic engagement or just confidence to get involved with extracurriculars at school. They need that push and that encouragement. So a mentor can provide that. And also with, the mentee can encourage the mentor to be an amazing leader and learn all those skills like we just touched on. The last one is kind of a really big favorite for me is cultural and generational exchange. So I actually have a mentee. She's the light of my life. I absolutely love her. And so she's 14 years old. And so she's teaching me everything about youth culture that I had no idea existed. I did not download TikTok until I met her. She taught me the Dalgona coffee trick. We made it over FaceTime together. We had a great laugh and, have a lot of fun. So it's kind of that generational exchange, but also culture. I'm learning so many different things from her culture in food, in, family relationships and language, so many different things I would have not experienced without her. And for me, I'm able to kind of share with her my journey to college, my career, anxiety about school and teachers and how to navigate that, how to navigate difficult relationships. We all have our own life experiences to exchange with a mentee and to share with them. And in return, we gain so much important, knowledge and life experiences. That's one of my favorite outcomes from mentoring. I'm going to invite Sarah to talk about some of these other outcomes.
Yeah, so for unconditional support through challenging times, mentors, it's not, they're not just there when you're doing well. They're not just there when you're not doing well. They're a rock for any time in your life. And something that I've seen is that some mentees, they have, steady improvements once they've met a mentor. It really gives them that extra confidence. Others, depending on the experiences that they had when they were children, the trauma that they carry, the systemic barriers that they face, and other things, they continue to have some of these challenges. So at home, at school. And so, things can still come up, but that mentor is a rock for them, someone to talk to throughout those times. Even, in the very rare case that we've had youth go to a juvenile hall, the mentor is there to visit them. God forbid that a crisis happens, mental health crisis, the mentor is there. So sometimes I think about, well, what if you didn't have that support person in your life? Then what would life be like? And so we've seen some of these long-term relationships really make a difference during those hard times, and also into young adulthood, where, one of the mentorships, she had a lot of trauma and was using drugs and getting into fights, but little by little started getting better grades, started being able to take care of herself, and then now is going to college and is going to be an art therapist, and still meets with her mentor. And that also relates to increasing positive behaviors. The healthy goals that you have for yourself, you can also talk about healthy goals that your mentee can have. And mentees are actually proven to not erase or take away depression or mental health challenges, but definitely ease them and ease the symptoms so that they don't become more severe.
Right. Yeah. Thank you, Sarah.
And then next, I wanted to talk about racial equity in mentoring. So one of the theories or guides that I follow and that I bring into the program is critical mentoring. This was coined by Tori Weiston-Serdan, and critical mentoring is a framework that embeds critical race theory into mentoring. So it openly considers race, ethnicity, class, gender, and sexuality into the program design and the mentoring relationship. So what we're doing is not ignoring the conditions or identities that people have, and making sure to individualize relationships and also make the program inclusive for everybody. And so in critical mentoring, something that they talk about is thinking about our community like a fishbowl, right? And so there can be toxic conditions that affect youth, and they're, you know, swimming around in their environment. And so it asks us, would you tell the youth that they're the one at fault, or that they need to be fixed? No, you would pay attention to the environment. You would help clean the fishbowl. And so critical mentoring is asking us to pay attention to these things with your mentee, because they see them, they're experiencing them. So have conversations about racism and discrimination that they might have faced, or that you might have faced. And together, work together on discussing these issues, and even doing community service or advocacy together. And so it also asks mentors to look at their privilege and their bias. In the mentoring field, a lot of times we see a majority of volunteers being white, many women volunteers who are white. And so, you know, sometimes there can be, like Kiki was saying, this idea that I'm teaching you what I know, and what I know is right. But what people don't realize is that that's coming from your bias and your background. And so when we mentor youth about things like what is professionalism, what is leadership, what is, you know, being in a good relationship and things like that, we're coming from our own perspectives. So making sure that we don't deny young people's strengths and backgrounds in the process. So I definitely think that all mentoring programs and all people should go through, you know, some reflection and cultural humility trainings. We include that in our mentor training, so that you're not doing any more harm to the youth, and you're having a very positive relationship. That you're also listening and learning from them, of course. And if you are from the same background as the young person, or also, you know, if you're both people of color, to share your stories. And that makes a really big impact as well. I like what Tori says, that young people are everything. They're innovative, inquisitive, radical, and they're loving. They have so much to offer and so much to teach us. So you can form a partnership with young people and let them lead.
Right, right.
So the next area that we've been, you know, exploring recently is mentoring during the time of COVID-19. Young people are going through a lot of challenges right now. There's not a lot of studies out there, but we all have seen and, you know, experienced personally the challenges during this time. 1 in 4 young people have expressed that they're losing sleep, feeling more unhappy and depressed, and worrying about having their basic needs met. In the Bay Area, you know, we work with a lot of families and are, you know, in relationships with a lot of people and families that are not having their basic needs met. And so it's kind of exacerbated the inequities that our community has already been facing. And so it's a time when, if you're in a mentoring relationship, you definitely want to make sure to check in on your mentee more often. They're isolated in distance learning. They're not going to after school programs, so they have less support than usual. And so mentors can be even more of that bridge and access point for youth to feel connected during this time. And a lot of this mentoring, of course, is virtual right now. So we're going to talk about what that looks like when it is virtual.
Great. Thank you, Sarah. So let's talk about some of the common formats we see in mentoring. You know, type-wise, we'll see one-to-one mentoring, which Sarah brought up, and she also brought up group as well. Traditionally, for Friends for Youth, we have 2 mentors to about 5 youth. And so, you know, we have enough mentors to provide that attention to the youth. So those are the types that we commonly see in other programs as well. And location-wise, it could be in a variety of locations. It could be at school, it could be community-based or on a site with, you know, one of our community partners, or even just virtual like we're doing now. So different locations. And, you know, there's different focuses in some mentoring organizations or programs. For us, we have, you know, very big focus on well-being, but also talking about careers and academics and getting involved in new activities like STEM, for example, is a really good example of you know, another activity that a mentee could get into through their mentorship. So focusing on in-person, kind of sticking with the theme of consistency and a lasting relationship, we have our mentorships meet once a week for about 2 to 3 hours. That's because we really want to keep that continuous communication going. If there's, you know, long breaks in between communication, it could really affect the rapport that's being built or the relationship in general and the trust that's there. So we really encourage, you know, if you are in a mentorship or want to be a mentor, cannot stress enough the consistency is super important to making that mentorship really successful. And in person, you know, a lot of our mentors do really fun activities together, and we match our mentees and mentors based on their common hobbies and interests, and even some of their life experiences. But this really helps for the recreational activities that they do together because they already have a common ground. Like me and my mentee, we love anime, we love makeup, we love fashion and food. And so with our activities that we do in person, we'll go get tacos one week, and then the other week we'll, you know, go out and go thrift shopping or something. So there's a variety of, you know, activities you can do. And with all those activities you do together, you're forming that bond and that relationship, right? And you could also, you know, kind of share your life with your mentee. You could, you know, invite them to your home, introduce them to your pets or family members, going to their school, checking it out, or they come to your workplace, favorite places, even a college campus. There's a lot of different places you can go in person and explore with your mentee and try new things. And when looking at virtual, we, you know, really encourage mentorships to still meet once a week, but, you know, a little less time, maybe an hour or two, just because we know that on these virtual platforms like meeting online on Zoom or Google Meet or FaceTime, it can be very hard to be on there for 2 to 3 hours. So we have a lot of our mentorships, you know, consistently meet for about an hour per week. That's been really manageable for them. And a lot of programs, including Friends for Youth, has developed our own proprietary online curriculum that we use for our one-to-one matches that, you know, encourage relationship building in the first 4 weeks. And then after that, our mentorships are able to choose different pathways of activities like STEM related or arts and culture or leadership. So a lot of different and fun options for our mentorships to choose. So these are some common formats. And looking next at activity ideas, we have so many activity ideas, and you can find activity ideas everywhere. But here are some of the favorite ones that we see in our virtual matches. So virtual matches, we have our curriculum. So in that includes the fun games online you can play, or even on your phone, going on virtual tours of museums and national parks. It's been really cool to see like even aquariums have these virtual tours and saying hi to the penguins on live camera. That's super, super cool. One of my favorite ones is doing a show and tell with things that are important to you. So in your room, sharing with your mentee something that you love or something that has a story, and being able to share that with your mentee and they share something with you. It's a really fun way to get to know someone. If you're passionate about music, creating a playlist with them, you know, sharing music from your generation or what was popular in your time and them sharing with you what's popular now. It's really cool to kind of see that. And you could do, you know, workout or, you know, play sports, but virtually, lots of options for virtual. And looking at in person, you know, some of these are the same. you could watch a movie together virtually or in person, but you talk about afterwards, and sometimes even on the car ride to the movie or after, or just for any activity. It's a really kind of safe environment to talk to your mentee and get to know them, and because you don't have anywhere to go, right? You're stuck there. So it can be a really fun time to talk to your mentee.
Sometimes those relationships take about even 3 months, a month to 3 months. If the youth is more reserved, like how I was when I was younger, it can take a while. So don't get discouraged. Just keep going. And then we've seen a lot of relationships blossom.
That's a really good point, Sarah, talking about, building that relationship, going into the mentorship, not having an expectation, right, about when your mentee, kind of opens up, or shouldn't go in there with expectations about those kind of things, and having patience and unconditional support. So thank you for bringing that up, Sarah. That's really, really important. Other in-person activities could be, going on a hike, going on a walk together. These are very common. It can be a really safe space to talk about what's going on. Doing a DIY craft together, tour college, and anything that you want to do. I dyed my mentee's hair one time. It was really fun. It took a long time, but it was very fun. And just doing, whatever you both are passionate about. Could be a social service as well, or anything like that. So here are just quite a few activities. And if you want more activities, a certain interest that you want to do with your mentee, or that you might want to do with a mentee one day, you can certainly reach out to us, and we can provide, specific ideas that are catered to your interests, if you don't see any that really appeal to you here.
Great. So how to get involved in a mentoring program or a mentoring relationship. So you can join a program, of course. In San Mateo County, there's only a few. Friends for Youth serves all of San Mateo County and most of Santa Clara County. There's other ones that are kind of specific to certain interests, like tutoring with Healthy Cities. There's Fresh Lifelines for Youth, which is youth involved in the juvenile justice system. So there's a handful there that are great programs. You can also start a program depending on where you see the need. You can also reach out to us to see if we have capacity to start a new group mentoring program. We just always emphasize that, if it's needed, start your own program, because it's actually, there's a lot that goes into doing a mentoring program, particularly in the volunteer screening process. We have a very thorough screening process that's more than just a background check, because we know that youth programs are at risk for volunteers who are predators coming into the program or into schools. And so we have a very thorough process there. You can reach out to us for tips on best practices as well. So if you want to have an informal mentorship, which we also suggest, if you are the mentor or the mentee, you can kind of make a map of your relationships. I would say that's more for the mentee. If you want to be a mentor, that kind of just happens more naturally. But if you're a young person or any age and want to mentor, kind of map out what are your goals, who do you know, right? And then start building the relationship, set up something a little bit more formal, not just leaving it to chance, about how often you'll meet, to start forming that trust. I jumped ahead a little bit. So once you form trust, or right away, just ask them to be your mentor. Instead of just assuming that it has become a mentorship, which sometimes it does just naturally do that. But to kind of increase the development of the relationship, you can also ask. I've asked someone to be my mentor before, and they were so honored. If you know a young person, ask them how you can support them, and if they'd like to go anywhere with you. And also setting boundaries and goals. We talk about this in our training about how you need to, of course, make sure you're talking to the young person about how often you're going to hang out, how often you're going to communicate, and all of these things. So as far as boundaries with the young person and the family and with you on all sides, it does kind of help to be within a program. But in any relationship, that's of course always good.
Absolutely. Setting boundaries is so crucial, so crucial. And there's so many different boundaries that we don't necessarily think about, right? We think about, maybe the consistency at which you talk to your mentee, but also thinking about, cost. That's another boundary, and with their parents, or that's another boundary, and even your own boundaries, self-disclosure, so many things that, we take into consideration that we talk about in our training. So if boundaries are something that you're interested in learning more about, definitely reach out to us. We can talk to you about that, and maybe send you information about that, so you have that kind of like rock in your mentorship all
Yeah,
figured
we've
out.
seen so many mentorships. So we've heard, how people have had conversations about making a budget for how much they're going to spend when they go out. What types of things, personal things people have disclosed and what they, tried to not disclose. So.
Yeah. And Sarah Lillian in chat brought up the San Mateo County Sheriff's Activities League has a mentoring and leadership program. Thanks for sharing, Lillian. That's definitely something to
Yeah,
look into.
yeah, they I've heard that they're doing one there. I think it's focused more on mental health. So thanks for sharing.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So let's move on to the next slide here. It's one of my favorite videos showing this really cute example of mentoring that I'd love for us to watch together.
What's wrong, Layla?
I want a box just like my dad, but people laugh at me and say it's impossible, like girls can't fight.
Impossible is not a fact. It's an opinion. It's a dare.
You really think I could be a pro boxer?
I know it. A great man once said, "She who is not courageous enough to take risks will accomplish nothing in life." You gotta believe you're the best in the world, even before it's true.
Thanks, Sayla. I want to make you proud. You don't need all the time in the world or to be a boxing legend to be someone's hero.
Be a mentor.
In real life.
Go to mentoring.org.
And become a mentor.
It makes me tear up. I don't know why. I just think it's such a cute example of, the kind of comfort and encouragement that a mentor can share with their mentee. It's really profound to kind of see it flip. It's very, very cool.
Yeah, and definitely reminds me of when mentees have helped me in my hard times as well.
Yes. Oh, for sure. That's one thing that I think, even me going into my mentorship, Sarah, and think, I'm going to comfort my mentee and support them. But there's times where I haven't been at my best. And when talking to my mentee, I express that vulnerability, and they're there for you. They come for you and they hype you up and say, "No, why are you thinking those negative thoughts? Like, you're the best, you're awesome." And yeah, absolutely. That's something that I didn't expect going into it. That's one of my favorite things too. So just kind of a little slide too about getting involved at Friends for Youth if you're interested in, mentoring with us, or if you know a youth in your life that is interested in having a mentorship. Let's talk about that. So if you want to become a mentor, visit us at friendsforyouth.org/volunteer, and you can sign up for an information session. And at that session, we'll talk about the program requirements, the details, and the application process. And we have a lot of information on our website about our different programs that we have. And like I said, if you're interested in, maybe sharing this opportunity with a mentee, and, they would be a great fit for the program, a mentee has to be referred by a youth serving professional. So it could be a counselor or therapist that they're working with, a teacher, a coach, the department after school program, someone in, kind of that setting. They have to fill out an application, they have to fill out a referral form for that mentee. So you can contact our one-to-one program coordinator, Danny, at friendsforyouth.org to learn the referral process. And if you want more information about that, you can definitely reach out to me and Sarah as well if you have questions about that or just want more information about, kind of maybe the requirements for the mentee, age-wise, location-wise, everything like that. Yeah.
Yeah, so I just answered the question about the age range of the mentees, 8 to 17 for our particular program. That is a pretty big range. So you can think of if there's a certain age you prefer, it'll be a little bit different with each age, but we do see that you can, form a great relationship and have, somewhat of, I don't want to ever say a huge impact because that, raises the expectation, but you can have an impact on any age group. Sometimes people think, oh, they're older, so they've already set in their ways. But there's different benefits to being with an older mentee or a younger one. Great. So we also have a session on Friday at 4 p.m. It's an open mentoring session. I think that's what it's called on the schedule. And so what we're going to be doing is we're going to actually lead a group mentoring session. We may do breakout groups. Our hope is to have youth and women, girls and women involved. And so let people know or tell people to sign up for it so we can have some great mentoring groups in real life. Let's see, what are the requirements for a youth to qualify for mentoring support? So there are not many requirements, just that they're in San Mateo County or Santa Clara County, that they're between the age range of 8 to 17. Besides that, we do say that a youth who's a good fit for the program is facing different adversities. They do need that extra support. We are a program that sees ourselves as part of the mental health community on the prevention side. We want to provide mentoring to youth who need it more than maybe others. And so that's kind of a basic description, but if you have specific questions about a youth or about the matching process, let us know. Mentors are volunteers from the community. They need to be at least 20 years old to be a one-to-one or a group mentor. They are trained by us to be a regular mentor, but they don't receive specific training on working with youth with certain types of special needs or more serious diagnoses. So if you have questions, just let us know.
Right. And here's a really good question from Tanya. What's your need right now for Friends for Youth? Do you need more mentors, men or women? On our wait list, we do have a lot of boys on our wait list that are looking for male mentors. And so we're always in need of mentors, though, regardless of gender. And even right now, we are looking for mentees that are girls, too. Like Sarah was talking about, we do have a lot of women volunteer with us, which is awesome. Yes. So we're always looking for mentees as well to join our program, especially girls who are open to having that mentorship. So that's kind of our need right now, but we're always looking for mentors. Would you agree, Sarah?
Yeah, definitely. Everyone is welcome. We do need more male volunteers. A lot of our boys want male volunteers. So if you know anyone, please send them our way, as always. We also, are open to or understand matching as far as LGBTQ plus adults or youth. And so we are very interested in referrals of LGBTQ youth and volunteers as well.
Mm-hmm.
The minimum age for a person to become a mentor, so 20,
yeah,
right, for both programs?
Yes, yeah. And
We
sometimes we
have
have
had
had,
college students in the group program, but
right.
it depends. We do want a slight difference in the age range.
Right. And Natasha asked, what does the mentor training entail during COVID? Is it virtual? Yes. So right now for our whole application process, including the mentor training for our mentors, it's all virtual. So the training is done over Zoom, application process is, virtual paperwork and everything like that. And if you're interested in the contents, Sarah brought up cultural humility. We do discuss that. We also discuss proper etiquette online, so on Zoom, and also we talk about our curriculum and how to use that, since we use Google Classrooms and tools like Slack or Facebook groups, how to use that. And scenarios, we use a lot of scenarios, which is a really great way for volunteers to kind of think about, okay, if I'm in this situation, how am I going to navigate this? And then we're able to provide, feedback about how they would go about that situation. And it could be situations from, my mentee is going through a difficult time, how can I support them? Or I think my mentee might be in a dangerous situation, who do I contact, what do I do? Or even just, oh, I'm having a hard time setting meetings with my mentee, what do you recommend? So we talk about all those things at the training, and it is virtual, so those are really fun. And you meet all the other volunteers, talk to them, and gain different perspectives, which is a really beneficial part of the training as well.
And we, every volunteer brings different skills and strengths. If you also are bilingual and bicultural, we have youth who do need Spanish-speaking mentors or families as well. Yeah. Any other questions? Great. Well, feel free to reach out to us for mentoring tips or to get involved. We
Thank you,
are
Rosa.
so happy to be serving youth, incredible youth in San Mateo and Santa Clara counties, and giving mentors and mentees this opportunity to be in these sorts of relationships. And we also take pride in connecting them to other opportunities and resources as well. So we hope that you have this experience in your life and that you can, reach out to people during this time and help them get connected.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. And
hope to see you on Friday.
Yeah, hope to see you on Friday.
This is Tanya. I just wanted to add a couple things. One, I'm going to be sending a survey about this session to everyone right after this. And two, this session is being recorded so that it will be available to the public in September. We just need to do some closed captioning. So that way you can share this presentation with your network and they can get more involved with Friends for Youth. So thank you all for joining us today.
Thank you, Tanya.
Everyone, thank you so much.
Have a good day.